Hello, I'm Derk Hansen. Welcome to my studio. Today I will get you started on a beautiful fruit still life painting. And in this session I will cover the basic setup for a photo shoot and work on the drawing of the arrangement. Then I'll wash in the painting with a black acrylic to get a visual idea of the composition, and next I'll work up the picture with white acrylic to get a black and white imprimatur rendering of the whole image. And for those of you that like to work from life, I'll show you how to construct a simple setup box that you can use in the future for all of your still life paintings. But for now, get yourself a pencil and a piece of paper and a cup of coffee, and we'll get started. I did a quick pencil rendering here of the whole setup after I took a couple of photographs, and in the process, while I was working on it, there was something about the apple I didn't like. And after I'm looking at the photograph and I'm thinking, well, you know, that apple is just kind of standing straight up and down, you know, like in formation. So I decided to lean the apple over just a little bit into the pear so I get a little nicer flow. So if you look at the pear, the axle of the thing here, so, and also then in this area, the kind of the highlight, it harmonizes better. But those are things that you will have to work with on your own. You got to look at it and you got to analyze it, and then pretty soon your little subconsciousness will tell you whether or not there's something that is bothering you. And if you get that little bother, work it out. Figure out what it was that in your subconsciousness let you see it without you actually physically seeing it. And that helps you begin to analyze your subject matter a lot more intense, and that's a good thing. It really is. So pay a lot of attention to that. But anyway, so I have this drawing pretty well done, and you know, I went through all kinds of compositions here with the apples, and I finally decided this is the way I want to do it. So now that I got this established, now I'm also, again, maybe that is not very, how would you say, traditional. After I get the subject matter down there, I'm looking at it and I think, okay, well, you know, the proportions here just are not right. So what is it that I want to do? Do I want to set this thing up and give it a little less headroom? But if I do that this way, see, then it almost looks like they're sitting right in the middle of the picture. So I decided to bring my bottom line up a little bit. And that way I show the tablecloth just enough to make the picture interesting, because the value variations in the tablecloth are pretty unique. And I really start to explain it later on while I'm painting on it, because there are very subtle value changes in the tablecloth. And if you make them too dark or you make them too light, you kind of lose the whole form. Anyway, but now that I made all of these decisions, I have a canvas panel set up, and I'm going to transfer the drawing over, and then I'll do the quick wash with the black acrylic to see what the whole composition looks like. With a number 2 brush, I quickly roughed in my pear and my apple. By the way, I have some good news and some bad news. The bad news is the pear did not survive. But the good news is it was awful delicious. Anyway, so I just roughed that in with some acrylic, and I let it dry so I won't lose the drawing anymore. And now what we have to do is we have to wet down the canvas just a little bit, just like you would for a acrylic painting. And you want to do this because otherwise the paint is really going to dry up on you very quickly. And I'm using a larger brush now to start working with the black. One thing that you have to remember, do not put down any real opaque colors. There, if you got this now, it's almost just like a you know, it's getting runny. But that's good. But all I want to do is I want to establish my lights and my darks and get an overall feeling what the composition will look like. I have to make a change as you see on the photograph, where the darks are in the back. Well, I don't want the darks in the back. I want my darks here because of the pear. So I'm just very quickly just rough that in and see how the washing works. Like I say, it's a minimal effort. Just be sure that you make a plan of where your lights and your darks are, where you want them to be. See, now I'm going to just fade this out because I want to have a lighter background where my darks are in the overall painting. Again, remember, one of the other lessons I told you, I always want to do warm against light. Take that back. You always want to do light against dark and warm against cool, and that way we'll establish a good value system. And see, because of all the water in the background, it really start to look like something. So now we have a shadow, and that one we're going to make a little darker under here. So there's a shadow that lays in here, and then that shadow kind of lays up in here. And also, as a shadow, it'll show up on the background, on the wall. Not as harsh as in the photograph there, but we just kind of want to lay this in. Here we got another little shadow that goes under the pear, or the little ones here we don't want to worry about. There's a really dark area right here. Very little light gets into that. See how dark it is? And now we want to work a little bit on the tablecloth, and I'm going to use very, very thin, because my light now on the subject matter is coming from this angle. So that means that the tabletop is going to get a lot of light too. So we're going to make that about the same value as we want up here. Because actually what I'm going to do later on, these lines back here, they're going to disappear. I just kind of want to fade into the dark areas and don't show up real strong. Now, this one, this flat area here, the background area is a flat area in the same vertical as this. So, but probably a little closer to the light. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay some color on it, and I'll take my little, just because right now, if you see, this is the same value as this, but I want this to be just a little lighter, so I'm wiping off just a little bit. And the tablecloth itself, of course, is white, but now we have a shadow area on the apple that kind of goes this way. Right there, it's the dark area. And we got some there. Then there's a dark area in this area, there's a little bit of shadow here, and then there's some dark areas here, and a shadow area there. There's some interesting things are going to happen here. And what I'm doing is I'm looking at it and thinking, it's not exactly what I had in mind. So I want to get this area, get it kind of work against each other. And every time I just kind of adjust it. Okay, so this is the edge of the shelf. And then we're going to create a darker area here, there's some dark areas here, and there's some dark areas here. And there's going to be some dark here. And there'll be a thrown shadow from there. See, so little by little, I'm establishing a pretty good, you go back over it and put your darks in a little stronger. the darkest darks of the throne shadow sits right here. And again, be careful that you don't put on too much. But because of the wetness of your canvas in the background, you can go a little darker here, brush in a little bit more. So we got that just a little darker. And maybe a little more dark in here. So actually we're doing pretty good, but as I said earlier, remember these really, really subtle areas of value changes in here. Don't forget that. That is what's going to make the tablecloth look so interesting. Anyway, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to let this dry off, and then I'm going to get out some white, and we're going to do an imprimatur of the whole thing, and then we'll really establish the lights and the darks, and then actually after that we're going to go get the paint out, and we're going to start putting some paint on it. Well, okay, now everything dried up pretty well, and so I'm going to mist down my picture and also mist down a little bit here, because I'm going to lay out a 5-value grayscale. And by that I mean I'll start out with my lightest light, which would be the white. And so we'll build this up as we go along. So now the pear actually is probably the second lightest area in the painting. So I'm going to lay over a little bit of white here where the light areas would be. The apple I'm not going to touch right now. I just know, okay, there's going to be a highlight there. But the apple in the value scale is probably on a value 3 or even 4, and on the shadow side, much, much darker. So I'm going to lay out some area here, which represents my light area. And again, you don't have to be too overly careful. We're not trying to complete a painting here. Again, with my lightest light. Another one of my lightest light probably would be, say, the tabletop. I mean, the tablecloth top. So let's put a little bit of light color on there. Let's say what I'm doing is I'm establishing my lightest light and my darkest dark, and then I find the intermediate values between that. Okay, we got a little bit here. We got a little bit here. Also, a few areas of the tablecloth will be touched by the light, so I'm going with a little bit of light here and kind of just go up this way. And there would be some here. And there'll be some highlight here. Okay, so now, why don't we go work on the darkest darks? Now I'm going to reinforce my darks. But there we got the darkest dark. I will go like that. That's going to be our darkest dark. Immediately under the shelf. That's where my darkest darks are going to be. But no, I don't want to create a black hole, so I also know that the darkest darks will be right there. And maybe a little bit here before they get a little bit lighter. And my darkest dark would be here. See, now I'm getting my dark here, and also now I'm going to go get more and reinforce my darks here. And so now we're starting to go somewhere with this whole thing. See, also as you probably know, that I'm kind of a little blocky on my drawings, and that's the way I like it. I changed the form of the apple a little bit because it was kind of like round, and it started to look like a tomato. So I opened it up a little more here and I tapered it down on the bottom, and as I told you during the drawing session, I leaned the apple a little bit to the side. So now we're going to bring some of the real darks in here. But also see, I'm kind of brushing this. I'm making the tablecloth already disappear into the dark. I don't want to have a very hard line there. It's just going to kind of float away on us. And also what you kind of want to keep in mind later on as we start painting these different different values, it is really good if you establish a brush pattern and you know, don't make long strokes like that. Well, you can if you want to, but what I'm saying is, you know, establish a little bit of a brush pattern that will lend itself to the background. So, okay, now we got my darks, and there are some more darks of the same type on the apple. Let's see, we got right here, right here, right here. Now, I'm going to leave this area right here. That is going to stay a little light, simply because we're going to have some reflection hitting the apple from the bottom, and that's going to be the light of the tablecloth. Let's get back onto it. So anyway, we got that. So now I'm going to establish a middle value, and that would be like, it's kind of like a 50-50 between the light and then the dark. So there we'll leave that right there. Okay, my middle values now would be the lighter area of the apple. And I'm also going to bring in a little bit of the reflection, but also this will also allow me to bring in a little bit more of the lighter colors, because of the like I said, the pear is probably the second lightest area in the painting. And so as all of this kind of comes together, now I'm going to have to make a decision. How light do I want the tablecloth to be? And you know, in a lot of these situations, you know, like you're looking at the photograph, and there's not a whole lot of value differences there, and then now all of a sudden you're bound by you say, well, I gotta have it this way, I gotta have it that way. Don't worry about that. Don't look at the thing literally. You paint it the way you want it to be. That's your choice as an artist. So I've decided that the darker areas here going to go right up to the edge of the tablecloth. And so now I'm bringing in this, and I'm bringing in some shadows. So I guess what I'm trying to say to you here is that, you know, when the light comes this way, I need a little bit more of a contrast. So I decided to just make that tablecloth a little darker. And we have, you know, shadow area here, and a little bit there, a little bit there. There's some shadows in here. And just in a second, that will all going to start to make sense. Again, we got this middle value right here, and going this way. Now, also, I want this to fade out in here too. This way, I'm paying actually in the whole painting process. I'm paying very little attention to this, because that is just something that's there. You know, I'm bringing in a little more light on the bottom here, like I said, so I don't have a completely big black hole there, and also go and brush this out just a little bit and adjust that. So now I'm going to have to go back to my middle value here, and I think, okay, you know, this is just a board, so I didn't paint it or anything, but I'm saying, okay, the tabletop gets a little light, And since all of a sudden looking at it, it's not lining up. So let's mix the next value in the value scale, and that would be a value in between the white and the middle value that we have here. All right, so still a little. There you go. Again, we got the middle value here, and I'm looking at this tablecloth thing, and I'm thinking, yeah, I'm gonna have to make that a little much lighter, but I'm also going to lighten up the tabletop, and I might even make that just a little lighter yet. But we're bringing in some other values here, and also start going into this area right here. Again, I want to maintain the shadow there, but I need to get a little darker here. And again, I'm going back to the light here, brush that back in. And we're going back to the dark area. Oops, I'll get that a little too light now. Okay, so we'll go back into here. Back one more time to the real dark. Okay. Okay, so I got my dark values here. And we'll go a little more on the dark side here. We got the dark shadows. And now we're going to need to build a value between this value and this value. So this would be my value here, and that would be the value that I'm going to use for the shadow areas. Now, the shadow area actually is going to be the darkest right underneath the apple, and then it's going to get a little lighter as it gets more and more influence from the outside light. Okay, so we got that, and then we'll fade that together just a little bit. And I got that. Now I want to make a fold right here, but I don't want to go too dark on the fold. So we get a little bit more shadow here, a little more shadow there, and a little bit more of the shadow into that. And again, we'll probably get a little bit of that stuff in here. Now, my other choices now will be to create a value that will lend itself a little more for seamless type blending. But again, the apple itself being red and on the light side more toward the orange, it sits much darker, much farther down on this value scale. So I don't want to make the apple too light, and I certainly don't want to make it as light as the pear. So I'm going to leave my highlight there, and I'm going to work down a little bit on this. And actually, my areas on the dark side of the apple will be much darker. There you go. And maybe a little bit here and go back in there. Like I say, we've got to remember that this whole area is going to be very light. And I'll go back with a lighter value of that. And you can mix a value scale of infinity, but I like to work with about 5 different values. It's simple, and it helps me block out my value differences a little better. it can get too complicated. You know, you want to, at the beginning of the painting, you want to keep it plain and clean and simple, rather than concerning yourself with bringing in all these little different values at this point. You know, you want to put down what you want it to be, and then leave it alone until you get into it with the color. You can brush it out a little more, of course, but that's up to you. So I'm decided that I want to get my tablecloth a little more under a little deeper value, and I cut this one, cut under here. This is going to be in the light. This is going to be in the light. So now I'm going to get back again with my lightest light, which would be the white. If I get something left here. And I say, okay, that's my highlight there. That's pair right there. That's good. That's good. That's good. So I'm going to go a little bit on the light side here, and you know, just refine it just a little more. But again, I'm not completely into the white yet, into the really bright. But I add a little more white to it, and actually, what that would amount to would be another one between the very light and the second value. But that way, if you bracket it out like that, it won't get so confusing. And you can go back and you can look at, okay, oh yeah, that is my value there. So then later on, we're going to create a color scale that goes along with this grayscale. So anyway, now what I want to do here is I'm going to have some lights. So my highlight, there'll be some highlight on this thing here. And we've got a little bit of highlight on the tablecloth, but there will be an edge. There will be an edge where we're going to have quite a bit of bright light. So here we go with this. And that one is caught by the light. This is caught by the light. But now we have at the very end we have this one value here, and that is the edge of the tablecloth. See, if you look at this, there's going to be a very fine edge of something really bright. So we want to get that in there to remind ourselves that that's where actually the highlights are going to be. I'm going to brush that out a little bit more. See, little by little, it's the value scale is falling into place. I want to lighten up the tabletop just a little bit. And then when later on, when we get really bright, see, then we got the little highlights here. They get there and there and there. So then I can go back with my darks and get a little more water on the thing. And go into a transitional value right in here, roll it where it kind of rolls from the light into the shadow, and we got it over here. See, none of the shadows are going to be this deep. We're just going to brush them out and put that value in there. Even the darkest dark anything is not going to be, we don't want them to be that dark. We want a value contrast between where the tablecloth is in the shadow and where it's in the light. So we got this. Okay, now I'm still going to have to worry about what the front part of my shelf is. Well, the shelf itself, the way I envision it, you know, it's a dark slab of wood. So even if it gets the vertical light off of that, it's still going to be a little bit on the darker side. But most of all, I do want it to be a little darker than the tablecloth. So let's just blend these out just a little bit. Where shadow areas are going to be. You know, every once in a while when you do paint with the acrylic stuff, you know, you want to go and step back from it a little bit and just mist it just a little bit. That'll keep the acrylic a little more brushable. And we got this one here, down here. We're doing pretty good. We're doing pretty good, don't you think? So we got that down there. Brush these in a little bit. These in a little bit. Soften that off. Okay. So make a little bit more of a commitment over on the pear. And we probably will go on the light side here. And we create a value in between that. And maybe even a little more here. And we're going to go a little bit lighter on this. So now we have value here. I want this to turn just a little bit. Okay. So now I'm kind of satisfied with I know where my values are going to be, and we can tell overall what the whole composition is going to be like. And so I'm going to let that dry off, and then in the next session we are going to start with a color scale that follows the value scale of the gray tones that we just had there. So that's about as far as I want to go. I hope you learned something. Actually, I did too. I know that those pears are really good. Anyway, I'll see you in the next session. You have a good day. Bye-bye.